Go ahead.
Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone, and thank you, Marilyn, for being here.
Yes, thank you. And also, please make sure that you write where you're from, your names, as well as if you're a caring listener, an affiliate leader, or on the board. I forgot to do that at the beginning. And I just want to tell a little bit about, first of all, Marilyn is amazing. She's had an incredible life, but I'm going to tell just a little bit about her book before she starts speaking. In Love is Greater Than Pain, Marilyn shares her profound understanding of the afterlife. Today, a renowned medium, Marilyn reveals the beauty in the transition from the physical to the spiritual plane, helping those who are dying, as well as those who are left behind. With personal stories and transcripts from channeling sessions, Marilyn teaches us how to interact with the afterlife and to joyfully embrace the reality that love truly is greater than pain. Marilyn shares universal messages of comfort, forgiveness, and understanding, including specific guidance for bereaved parents, for those dealing with dementia, and even for those people who are grieving for their animal friends. Marilyn's groundbreaking seminal work offers practical advice, clear takeaways, and a new approach to death, grieving, and living your best life. And I am just so grateful to welcome, and please join me in welcoming, without any further ado, Marilyn Kapp.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to share. It's been such an interesting journey. When I was 2 years old, I was 2.5 years old, my grandfather passed, and I was by his bedside, and I watched him come up out of his body, and I looked and his body was still there, but I saw him rising above it. And it didn't scare me because I didn't know that that wasn't the way it was supposed to be, so I wasn't frightened at all. And he basically ascended, and he assured me I could hear him. He said, "Don't worry, I'll come back." And I knew he was back before I had a chance to miss him. He was back. I thought it was normal. I thought everybody could see it. I thought everybody had that perception. And when I got a little older, it was really jarring to find out that most people didn't. But what I did learn is, for years, and I talk about it in the book, I sublimated it and I tried to be a normal kid. You're a teenager and you're seeing things and feeling things. And I realize now that so many people out there, they realize that if you have that open vibration, which all of us are capable of having, they'll communicate with you. They'll find any way to come in and get a message to you, and they'll look around and they can feel the vibrational pull, whether or not somebody will hear them. So it was frightening. I tried to push it away, but then when I was in college, I didn't know I could really be. I started to think that maybe I don't know. It's interesting. But I learned to rely on my intuition. And in college, I went to Boston University, and I was very, very fortunate to study with Elie Wiesel, the author. And I studied with him for several years. And every time he would walk into the classroom, I would see a whole group of people around him every time. And it was the strangest thing. They were always there. And we had this little ritual we had, whether we had small classrooms and big classrooms. He let me, even when I went to grad school elsewhere, he let me come back and audit his classes. And every time I would look at all the people around him, then he would look at me and we would nod to each other and then he would talk. So I gathered all my courage and I made an appointment and went to his office and I said, listen, I really have to tell you what's going on. And I told him, and I had also been picking up physical things. One day I came in and, he walked in the classroom, my ears started to hurt. And he said, I was supposed to fly today. I was supposed to work on Jimmy Carter's, Holocaust Museum. That shows you how old we are. But I couldn't fly because I have an ear infection. That happened a couple of times. So when I told him about what I saw and felt, I had my one line ready. So if he hauled me off as crazy, at least he would laugh. And I ended it with, well, at least take better care of yourself because you're killing me, So he basically asked for more. He told me he knew all about it. He knew all about the people surrounding him. His mother and his rabbi back in Transylvania before the war, they knew about it. They spoke of these things and he became my mentor. And I get emotional just talking about it because he was the one who said basically he felt it wasn't an affront to any religion and it could be used to help people, all people. Because one thing I have to say that I see, whatever dogmatic or whatever religion people are, it always comes in, the light is the same. I'm sorry about that. I was so set up in the other office and the internet wasn't working in there, so I'm sorry about the noise. So he told me that not only was it normal, but that he basically gave me permission to develop it and that it wouldn't be harmful to anyone else and that I could use it to help people. So it started to grow and I became more confident as time goes by. And I ended up just really, this is what I ended up doing. It wasn't what I had planned, but I would meet people and wherever I would be, there'd be somebody behind them or next to them, tell them I'm okay, tell them this is what happened and how I went out and I'm with them every day, tell them. And I love being the conduit. I love it, but I realize there's something more important than being a conduit. And I believe that's helping other people know that they can do it themselves. I don't have any moving parts that other people don't have. I was very fortunate in that I had wonderful teachers, but also I believe that most children, babies, you look at them, you're holding them and they're looking up and they're looking at the people that they were with before they came in. I believe in the same space where you channel people who have passed. There are people waiting to come in. People often say, how did you know the future, that this one would have a baby and that this one, and it isn't telling the future, it's that people out there will show who's with them, who's looking to come in. We have free will, but the interaction out there, it's the networking. You think we network, we think of this computer and all the little faces in the boxes. What they're doing out there is absolutely amazing. They network with each other to get messages to their parents, to get messages to their loved ones, to let them know that they're okay. And they become friends out there. I mean, I haven't been to a meeting of this group. I've been to Compassionate Friends, and I'm amazed because I watch over the parents' heads and the kids are all hanging out and meeting and greeting and talking and get my mother to do this and there's so much activity going on. And the interaction is amazing. What I learned is that it's so beautiful and wonderful to relay the messages. And I love doing it, but it's so important to know that everyone can do it. Again, babies do it. It's our birthright, I believe. My mom, she's out of body. She's still I use the present tense, so I hope that isn't jarring. They don't like it they don't like the word dead and they don't like the past tense because they're very much with us and they're very active. So she basically, my mom felt that she could feel when somebody was around. She felt protected, but she didn't get full conversations. So she would ask me what my grandfather, her dad, had to say. So I would be relating it. And that's when I learned, I was like, why are you asking me? Don't you hear him yourself? And she said, no, I feel him. And I started to understand that there are very many ways for us to feel it. So I call it the wave, the goosebumps, the hug, that whole wave. I have to say, I've never channeled a child for a parent that didn't know how to make their parent laugh, whatever the circumstances. I have to say, the channeling itself is so joyful. It's so joyful. I might cry during a session, but it's the tears of the person coming through, their emotion. If I cry, it's afterwards on my time, because, when I work with somebody, it's so beautiful, it's so real, but of course, then they're getting into their car or hanging up the phone and they'll continue talking to their child, but they're not in the physical. So I think it's very important to not deny the physical. We're in the physical body, so we can't deny that. But when we can integrate, and basically what's been channeling in the past few years that I wrote about is that it's the law of physics. Basically, we all vibrate at a certain vibrational level, a certain frequency. And there are all kinds of waves. I mean, there are microwaves, there's TV waves. We have a frequency, and our loved ones who are out of body, they vibrate at a higher frequency. So for me to channel and be able to maintain a conversation for a few hours, I'll meditate just a little bit, but I'll ask to raise the frequency. And out there, they're doing the same. It's a collaboration. And I really believe that our increasing our languaging with them, our communication skills with them, we have to remember that it's a collaboration. They're learning how to do it too. Usually when we have dreams, we can feel that visceral feeling and we know that they're real visits, but we might not remember the words. And over the years, I found that that was not an uncommon thing. And the person who's out of body will say, well, I'm learning how to do it too. I'm adjusting the frequency, but you can feel me, you can see me. So they're working with us. And what I've come to understand is that if we ask for protection, that everything be for the highest good in whatever way feels good to you, and I can share the protection I use, and everyone I think should do whatever they feel, change the wording, do what feels comfortable for you. But it's a two-parter. I think of the Greek letter pi, protection and intention. So what I do for protection is I'll say I clothe myself in a robe of light composed of the love, the power, and the wisdom of, and I use the word God, you can use divine consciousness, nature, mother, whatever it is. The second part is to ask for the alignment so that you can have the communication opening with what you can hear the person that is trying to communicate with you, because they do and they are. So the second part is I wear it not only for my own protection, but also so that those who see it or come in contact with it will be drawn to God or divine consciousness and healed. So you're asking that everything around you be on that higher frequency. And then you also add in with your intention, I would like to communicate with, or I would like my ancestors or guides or whoever you would like to invite in. I've always been amazed at how much they hear from us when we don't realize they are. They're here and they're listening. It isn't like they're peeping toms. It isn't like, they're here. It's incredible. It's so interesting. It's a couple of things happen. I'm already hearing from, there's a whole bunch of kids that I'm already hearing from that are hanging out. And they're kind of shifting with what they want me to say. Animals, there are a couple of kids here who want me to talk about animals. Animals usually see and hear people who are out of body. If you have a dog or a cat or any animal that's starting to, after your loved one has gone out of body, is looking at the wall, the door, somewhere where nothing else in the physical plane is happening and barking or going crazy, you can be sure that your kid is trying to get your attention through the animal. That happens all the time. I'm just asking them where they want me to go. I'd like to share basically how the love is greater than pain got its name. I became involved with a really beautiful family, a young man who was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer when he was 30 years old. And they gave him a couple of months. He lived 15 more months, and we became very close with he and his family. We would do meditation sessions, and he wanted to learn how to channel himself. I would channel for him so that he would know everybody who's out there waiting, and he wanted to learn how to channel himself. So we sat there and we did the protection and we put out our intention and we asked for all kinds of help out there. And we ventured forth, and I don't know how, but it happened. And he was able to see his grandfather, his dog came running up when I had my eyes closed because of course I'm out there looking with him. And I hear him screaming for his mom to come in the room. Mom, mom, Wolfie, the dog, Wolfie's here. It gave him so much courage. He started to really learn to live in both worlds. He sent me out of the room to try and do telepathy because he thought that would work. If I can do it while I'm still in body, I'll be able to channel later. So we did that, and I wrote down what he wanted to say when I was in the other room, and it was what he wanted his mother to say at his eulogy. The day he passed, I woke up the next morning, and usually I hear in my head, like when you're thinking something, I don't hear out loud a few times, but I opened my eyes and I heard audibly, "Hello, Marilyn, it's a new day," audibly. And I got the wave, the goosebumps, that feeling. And I knew it wasn't just the new day. He was talking about consciousness was his. He was able to communicate. He was able to, and he's been amazing. He channels, he comes in for his mom. It's been about 7, 8 years now. And on the 4th anniversary of his passing, I was channeling for his mom. We're sitting outside and he's chattering away, and it's joyful. It's just joyful. And I just stopped and I said something, not channeling, and I said, you know, I'll never understand. The big picture is so beautiful. The big picture is magnificent. We're never separated. We're never without them. But why is it so hard? Why is it? I just started to lose it emotionally. Why? Here's this mom sitting in front of me. And I just looked up and said, God, why does it have to be this difficult and so much grief? And this young man came in and he said, I'll tell you, her son, he just spoke right up and said, well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you the secret to the universe. And I thought, well, okay. And I said, okay. And he said, we go through it to learn that love is greater than pain. And he turned to his mom and he said, I can prove it to you. Are you better off or worse because I was here? She said, oh my God, of course I'm better off. Would you have chosen a different child if you could still have them? No, I only want you. And he said, then, well, we have to, if we're better off, then we have to be better for having had our physical time. We have to be better for it and learn how to really communicate openly. And then we have to teach other people to do it. His mom had a corporate career and she had taken off the 15 months and took care of him. She was his caretaker. She tried to go back to her job. She couldn't do it. She went back to school. She got a degree in therapy as a social worker, and now she works in hospice helping people transition because of what she learned. She says that she feels him every time she goes into a patient, he's with her. She can feel it. And what happens, I believe, is that eventually, and not to deny the physical pain at all, but eventually I believe it's possible to have a different kind of reality where it's incorporated. Of course, the pain is still there, but it's incorporated where you feel them, you hear them, you know that they're there, you're getting messages, and you start tuning into the messages, and it becomes a state of grace, so synchronistic. I have a feeling a lot of you already have. That's what these kids are, I think that a lot of these kids are really getting through. There's one who really likes to play with animals, one who plays with birds. I'm looking at the boxes, but I think they're different on the screens. But there's all these kids are together and they pass notes to each other and they teach each other how to do it. So it's about us opening up. And all of us will perceive it differently. Our daughter can do it. She's, she's in her 30s and she's been like that since she's a child. She perceives it very differently than I do. I've always seen auric fields and layers to auric fields. And when I see an out-of-body person, it looks like an auric field, but without the person inside. And you can just get communication from that. She says she doesn't see any of that. but she can tell you what color every auric field is. She says she doesn't see them. She can tell you where they're standing. There are so many ways to perceive. It isn't just with the senses that we're used to. It's our soul's knowing. And we're souls just like these kids who are out of body. The only difference is that we're still in the physical body. So we were together before we came in. I believe we come in, then they're invited in. We have our time together, but we're separated by a vibrational field. And the love, of course, is the glue and the reality, and we're soul family. So they don't stray far from us. And I've heard people say that there are some religions that say it's really not the right thing to do, and, to channel or to talk to people who have passed. And whenever that's addressed, people come in and channel in. Heaven wouldn't be heaven if I couldn't be with and help the people I love. It wouldn't be. It just, how could I be? They don't want to sit on a cloud with a harp where, they're with us. They're actively with us. They help the siblings. They help the ones that are shut down and can't breathe. They whisper to us. They are with us, doing whatever they can to get through. There are a couple of things I've learned, and usually what happens when somebody has so much grief and so much unfathomable loss, it naturally lowers the vibration. Physically, it lowers the vibration. So when we're in grief, it's much harder to pick up that higher frequency. I found this myself when 11 years ago, my mother passed. She had been very ill, was not in good shape. I knew eventually I could channel her. I was able to channel for other people, but for a little over a year, I could feel her, but I couldn't get her clearly because I was grieving. And I was mad at myself and upset, and I could do it for other people. And, the head goes and takes its little trip, but it was the reality that I was grieving. And though I could feel her comfort, I couldn't really hear her words yet. Now she's my constant companion. She's right here. She's, helping me everywhere I go. It's gotten to the point where, our young friend who passed, the one that I told you about, who came up with the name Love is Greater Than Pain. He wants me to tell you a story about how this works. I asked to be aligned to help the ones out there, and I never know what I'm supposed to say or be directed until I'm actually in it. And he says that this might resonate with people. Our daughter was in LA and on her way she had just moved to LA and gotten an agent. She was on her way to her first acting audition. And she got terribly lost. She's usually very organized, and she couldn't find her headshot. She couldn't find anything. And she's in the valley, totally lost. And she just stopped at a light and she looked up and said, I think I'm not supposed to do this. If I am, somebody please help me. Well, our young man, Alan, I had to change his name. His name is Alan in the book. She looked up and she was in an area she had never seen, and she saw his name on a billboard and only one word. And then he told her, he gave her directions. She ran in, there were over 100 people there. She barely skidded in like a cartoon and made it, and she got it. And it was with his help. It was totally with his help. They are so interactive. And I know that for most of us, it's just the comfort of knowing. It isn't like the action or help us with something. I would never think to ask them to help with anything. But of course, if we have something going on health-wise, or with another child, or with somebody we love, or with grandparents, they want to, from their viewpoint, tell us what's going on. So they're there with that information, and they'll bring you signs, and they'll try and show you. Another thing.
Marilyn? Can I interrupt you just 1 second? I hate to do this because you're just saying the most beautiful things and people are writing the most beautiful things in the chat box. But I was going to have Iris speak before you spoke about that incredible reading that she received from you. And I forgot to do so. We also have another person here, Paula Leslie, who had a reading with you, but I'd like to have Iris just give a little bit of a rundown of what she experienced with you, if that's possible, and then we can go back to hearing you speak. Is that okay?
That would be great. And if I forget, and thank you, because Iris, I really want to hear what you have to say. And thank you for sharing. And but remind me if they pull me in another direction, I want to talk about how the frequency, right now, because of the pandemic, the I don't want to use the word separation, but the discrepancy in the vibrational frequency between out of body and in body is the most narrow it's been in recorded history. So it's a very important and fortuitous time for us to be able to communicate and receive communication. So I'll talk about that after.
That's
Okay.
wonderful. And we need to hear that, that's for sure. So Iris,
Hi, everyone. Well, I did write something thinking that it was before. So before Marilyn was going to.
I'm sorry.
But no, it's fine. Just to show you how much I trust in Marilyn. When she was saying, this is exactly what she said. And I was, I clothed myself in a robe of light. I took it from her book, wrote it down, and I say it every day. So when I want to connect with Dana, and I'll read a little bit about what I wrote, because this is how I found Marilyn, which was through a string of synchronicities, which started with Suzanne Geisemann's website, which I'm not even sure Suzanne and Marilyn know each other. But through this crazy connection, I found Marilyn Kapp. And pretty early into my journey, I was struggling intensely. And I began seeking help in belief, evidence, and connection to my daughter, Dana. And one night, after feeling a bit lost, I asked Dana and the universe to send me a medium who would understand me from my roots growing up in Brooklyn, New York, and especially my New York skeptical state of mind. And literally the next morning, I get an email from a podcast I listened to from Irene Weinberg called Grief and Rebirth. And Irene is interviewing Marilyn about her new book. Now, as you can hear, Marilyn doesn't have my intense Brooklyn accent, but from the moment I heard her voice and listened to her words, I was able to take them in literally at a heart level. And I reached out to her and I trusted if my daughter wanted me to have a reading, it would happen. And as Marilyn told you that her mentor was Elie Wiesel, and he would say that there are no such things as coincidences. And I am beyond grateful to Marilyn and Dana and the universe, God, for that opportunity. The evidence that she connected with Dana was outstanding, especially when she said, your daughter has very colorful language, and went on to say exactly how Dana would say it, which I won't repeat here. But I knew at that very moment, this is Dana. And there was so much more in that reading that she gave me, evidence and clarity. And it's difficult to put into words really how miraculous it was to have that special time. And I'll always treasure it. I mean, Marilyn just doesn't give you a reading. She embodies the person she's channeling, and she takes their emotions in. And it was very touching for me. And besides that, her it's so amazing reading her book. And in her book, she gives us an in-depth and truthful understanding of the greater reality, allowing us to learn that our loved ones, as she says, are always with us and that we can all connect with them. And to me, Marilyn lives her life truly with her heart forward, and she lives to serve the healing community with love and grace. And I am so thrilled to have her speak to all of you here tonight as each of us journey in our own personal quest for our connection to our beautiful children. And having met Marilyn and having a reading with her and even reading her book has given me so much. And I truly love you, Marilyn. I told her the first time we spoke, I said, this woman's going to think I'm crazy, but I just said, I love you, Marilyn. But I really can tell you, I feel that from my heart. So thank you.
The same way. Thank you so much. I really feel the same way. I love so much everybody I channel, and I get to know people that are not on the physical plane that I wouldn't get to know otherwise. And of course, I wish it wasn't the case. I wish it was. I wish nobody needed me for any of this. But I'm so honored to be allowed to do this. Thank you. It's interesting because when it's so funny because when I'm in a group of people in person, I can look around the room and give the messages to who's right there. And of course, one-on-one, it just feels like there's a whole little choir back here, you know? It's synchronistic, it's the alignment. And Elie Wiesel always said there's no such thing as coincidence. And if you really start looking at what these kids are doing, and I'm jumping around. I feel like I'm all over the place because there's so much. I just want to go on. If I had like a million hours, I would just keep going. Two things I want to talk about. Again, the frequency about this time frame I want to talk about, but also the whole idea about the physics aspect, that they vibrate at a higher frequency than we do. And so we're learning how to raise our frequency. And of course, grief naturally lowers the frequency. We need to release our grief and not just stuff it down. I'm sure you know all about that. But it's interesting because if they can't get through to us in terms of our frequency, in terms of perceiving them, electricity has a higher frequency than we do. So they'll play with electricity. They'll flick the lights. The power will go out. They'll play with that stuff. Digital technology takes it to another level, and it's so exciting. I've been channeling for years that within, from this point, about 25 to 35 years from now, there'll be open communication through technology. I'm told now that because of what we're going through on the earth plane and our needs and the spiritual need to help us with the global pandemic, it will be a lot less time than that. What I'm also finding on a personal level, when my kids were young and I would write down, what do you do? I would write consultant. You don't want to look for trouble, These days I have a lot of medical things going on, and I'm honest and I say what I do. Every single person wants to tell me a story or ask if I see somebody. Everyone is curious and open, if not way more than curious, but it feels like everybody's had some kind of experience. And just when you share, what I love about this kind of group, sharing the spiritual aspects, whatever it is you're talking about within it, whatever the context, which child you're talking about, which parent, everyone's vibration goes up. I would like to ask, and I have a feeling that after you have a meeting, if people have more synchronicities or more visits or are more aware of what's happening, I bet that happens all the time. With digital technology, it's really fun. If you have an iPod or a MP3 player, you put it on shuffle and you talk to them and they'll play the music. My mother stopped the music cold and answered a question while I was thinking it in my head. It's really incredible. When my father died many years before my mom, and the night my mom passed, we were all with her and we got in the car, and my brother, who's a musician, had like 60,000 songs on his MP3, and he's a musician, so they're all, classical and jazz, but he had thrown one album, I'm that old, one CD of Broadway stuff, and over the years it had never come up. It was just, 12 songs in the midst of 60,000. So he said, oh, let's put it on. Let's see what mom has to say. And I could hear, I said, oh, she's not ready yet. You have to give her time. People have a life review and they process and they're being greeted. And, the committee is there welcoming them. And he said, okay, let's hear what dad has to say. So we put it on shuffle, and Sammy Davis Jr. yells, "The Wicked Witch is dead," and starts singing, "Ding dong, the witch is dead." My father's personality, 100%. And he was there. He was there to greet her and to be with her. In fact, while she was in the process of transitioning, she looked up, and my father, who had passed over 20 years before, said, Sammy, not today. Come back tomorrow. I'm not going today. And at one point there was a hospice. nurse there, and he pulled me outside and he said, you know, when they say things like that, you really shouldn't, it upsets them when you disagree. You really should go along with it. And I said, well, yeah, of course, I see them too. And he went, oh, you do? I do too. That's why I do what I do. I have a feeling that a lot of people who choose this work, they're there, they know, like Alan's mom in the book, she knows, she goes in. One thing I'd like to share, and I know all of you have had so varied experiences in the process with your child passing. You're either there or not there, or what's happening. There are so many variances. But I found that when I've been in the room with somebody getting ready to transition out, it's the same energy. It feels that way to me as when somebody is coming into body. I mean, I had, you know, birthed 3 kids without anesthesia, but also helped midwife people, and also had helped midwife a mom whose baby had passed before birth. And you could feel that child in the room. You could feel the child in the room. And, you know, he turned around and found a healthier vehicle and came back. That often happens. But the energy of that transition, whether it's coming or going, and of course I think of Mel Brooks' Always Too Soon, you know that movie, but that whole transition, that energy, that frequency, it's that heightened frequency, it's that, you know, you can feel it, you can just feel it, and we're all capable of that all the time. So this whole thing about what's happening now, we've had pandemics before, but because of technology, we know what's going on all over the world. So all over the world, people are suffering, people are dying, and so many people aren't able to be with their loved ones when they're getting ready to go, and we have to learn a new way there too. But people are looking up in whatever religion, whatever way, begging for help. They're begging their families, they're begging God. And even people who are agnostic or atheist are looking up and going, what the, you know. And so usually what I've learned is that our loved ones out there are there to help us, but they cannot and are not allowed to steal our growth. So very often we need to figure it out. To give us a cheat sheet would defy why we're here. And there's a chorus of kids back here that say that all of you are on this incredible mission to integrate knowingness, so that everyone knows. I mean, that's one thing about this young man, Alan, and again, I know I'm jumping around, but I'm going in the direction they're pulling me. This young man, Alan, when he was getting ready to pass the day before, his mom and I are with him, and he's going in and out of consciousness, and we're massaging him. And she just stopped and she said, I never knew it could be this beautiful. That changed my world. I didn't understand until that moment how the worst possible thing that could happen to a parent, that there was light, there was still light coming in. And I think that really set the precedent to help him. I hear from kids all the time, the first thing they'll do when they talk to their parents, thank you for saying goodnight every night. Thank you for throwing me a kiss. Thank you for, you know, getting something I would have liked for my birthday and donating it. Thank you for, you know, whatever it is. They know exactly what you're doing. One kid was so funny. He said, hey, Mom, you got the blue sneakers, but you almost got the white one. She said, what? And he said, I was here. She said, oh my God, whenever I put the blue ones on, I just felt better. He said, that's because I hugged you whenever you put them out, because I like those better. This happens all the time. And one kid who's arguing with his mom and brother about who he felt he should have won, who should have won American Idol. And that was his thing. That was, he loved that. That's what he was arguing about. It continues. The love continues. So this whole thing where we're looking up and we have such need, though they're directed to not steal our growth, we usually, and I'm sure a lot of you have learned this, we have to learn how to ask. And I don't know about you, but I was brought up to figure it out and, you know, just make nice and try and help everybody, but not to ask, you know. And I thought it was selfish to ask. And I've just been learning myself. I talk about that in the book. I channeled 8 years ago. I was diagnosed with cancer and it was a really bad prognosis. And I looked up and I said, okay, and I learned how to channel for me. I always took direction, I always took guidance, but I never looked up and asked. And I got an incredible amount of help. And obviously I'm still here and I feel like I have deeper insight, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I wouldn't trade my life experience for anything. But now we have the whole world looking up and saying, what do we do? So because our need is so great, they're allowed to come in closer to help us. It doesn't mean they figure out everything that we have issues with, but they are closer, helping us and more available. So now is the time. Now is the time. Now, the one thing I would say is not to think too much, because as soon as we think too much, we might get in our own way. It's usually when you're not thinking about it. Most of you, oh my God, I think almost all of you, would you say that when you're distracted doing something else, going for a walk or driving the car, that you hear your child and there's an interactive conversation, and then you realize and go, what? But it was a real conversation, because time and again, I channel for families and the kid comes in and goes, well, we had this conversation in the car, and the kid will repeat it word for word. And the mom is like, I thought it was my imagination. And it's not. It's not. We can get used to doing this. We can have it happen every day. You don't need anything. You don't need to know anything. The one thing I would recommend is just don't work too hard. It feels to me, what I've learned from channeling is that, we're a spirit in this vehicle, we're a soul, just like your child is a soul just outside the body right now. And I know it's a big just, it isn't, I'm not taking that lightly. But we're spiritual beings, and they keep talking out there. Is there a young man in the group that's here that I wish I could pinpoint who, but there's a young man who's really trying to come through because he feels that is there in this group, is there a young man who had a hand in stopping his physical existence, but had absolutely no intention of it? Because this kid is, can I look at the button? Is that you, Sandra?
There's a lot of people who are saying yes. Maybe you could specify.
Okay, let's talk about, let's just see as a group what they want to say, because that will usually happen. They'll start talking about, they start grouping and saying, okay, this is how we can reach. It's interesting because I wrote longhand. I wrote the book longhand, and kids came in and talked while I'm writing. They just come in and start telling you things. So there are a group of kids out here. Two of them were toxic at the time and had alcohol or something else in them, didn't know what they were doing. We're absolutely not planning to do it. One of them was somewhat manic and would go up and down. The other one is not, that I'm picking up. So I feel like, I know this is vague. I would have talked to each and every one of you, but sometimes there are different kinds of suicides. And I get very upset when people feel that their child, if they went from suicide, that they're not available, that they can't come and talk to us. Yes, they can. They're the only suicides that I've come across that were not available to communicate were the ones who were doing it with a vengeance, to hurt somebody, to punish somebody. And they were, and there's, I don't know, devils and pitchforks, whatever people, I haven't seen anything like that. They're in a rehab setting where there's kindness and love to try and understand why those kinds of feelings would take precedence over one's own breath. So that's very, very rare. Usually it's an unconscious suicide, or, and I'm getting a lot of, like, several, an unintended one. And I always think of that song. I think it's, is it U2? Tell me if I'm wrong. Stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. I think that happens. And I channeled one young man who described to his mother how he went out, and he always had this thing going on in his head and he was always afraid of it. And one day it popped. And my brain, I'm behind, I stay conscious, I don't trance channel, I stay and I'm listening as he's talking. And I thought, wow, I wonder if he had an aneurysm. And he just looks over at me and goes, no, I made it pop. And he shot himself. And he said, Mom, it was inevitable. I really didn't know that I did it. I just needed to make that stop. And that's what I did. But then I was out of body and I didn't understand what I did. I didn't really have the consciousness to know. And he described his grandfather, the mother's father, who stepped right up and literally, this blew me away, took him, held him, hugged him, and turned his face away from his own physical body. He said he never saw what his mother, the mother came running in the room. She was in the next room. She, of course, saw, she has that in her memory. And he said, Mom, I didn't even see it. Grandpa didn't let me see it. He just hugged me and pulled me away. And I'm sorry, I wasn't mad at you. I wasn't mad at anyone. I didn't even know I did it. And one thing I've come to understand, they've been teaching me, we have to realize that the brain is an organ just like everything else. We have trouble with the knee, we go get it fixed. We have trouble with, the heart, we go get a stent or whatever we need. The brain is so confusing, and when the brain is misfiring, we think that people are doing things purposefully. And I've heard over and over and over again that that's just not true. That's just not true. I've also, one young man wants to talk about the fact that he's somebody I channeled before. It isn't specifically picking up your children in this one, but he had a big fight with his girlfriend and he left and he hit a tree, wrapped around a tree, and then he's gone. And his mother, when we were channeling and he started talking, and she said to him, they checked for alcohol, you had a beer, I know it wasn't enough to make you, why did you do it? Why did you do it? And he said, Mom, we fight all the time. That wasn't it. A squirrel ran out and I swerved not to hit it. And that's what happened. It wasn't a suicide at all. And she said, he's still not in the physical. And it hurts every day, but I know it's his love of animals, not his anger. And I think that helps. And it helps him to know. But one thing I do know is they say thank you for each and every kiss, each and every communication. Sometimes I hear from kids, kids will spend as much time as they need to get through. And once they get through, then they're not worried about that anymore. And they're learning like crazy. In fact, Alan, the one I told you about in the book, his nephew passed a few months before him also of cancer. He was 14 years old and he planned to be a surgeon. His mom, we've worked together, and his mom decided that she tried different ways. She tried automatic writing. She's right-handed. She writes with her left hand and it works. It comes out in his penmanship. I've never tried that. I just scribble and write when they talk to me and I jot it down. But he also explained to her that because he doesn't have to worry about her, that he's wrapped around her, but it gives him freedom when he knows that she gets it. Yes, she's grieving, but when she understands that he's doing his work, every night she'll say goodnight to him and tell me what you learned tomorrow. He's still studying. He works with surgeons. And if any of you, I hope not, have had a lot of medical things, I choose my doctors, obviously the doctor, but I look around and I see who's around them, who's mentoring them out of body. And sometimes they're kids, like this 14-year-old kid, they'll come in and they'll help. They still pursue their dreams. Kids come in with a tendency towards talent or whatever it is, and of course they're going to pursue it after. And our time with us makes it richer, makes it more full. And I'll never, I still, even though Alan tried to tell me, I still think it's so hard to have that level of grief and pain. But if you integrate the truth of it, the truth of the big picture, they want me to tell you, it starts to be fun. I know it's not, I'm honoring the grieving, but it starts to be, they want me to tell, for them, it starts to become a game when you play, and they love it. They'll bring you birds, they'll bring you butterflies. Friends of ours, their daughter passed in a very tragic accident. She had just gotten a dog. It ran out into the parking lot right when she got it, a Brinks truck, and that was that. the dog survived. Her favorite color, she's an artist, and her favorite color is iridescence. Her parents find, that iridescent stuff that you see, I guess, in decorating or Christmas or baskets, but that iridescent ribbon, every day they find it. They have, what do you call it, a little camera out front, so if somebody rings the bell, they can see who it is. They'll hear a noise and they'll see strings of iridescent waving in front of the camera. And of course, they can't see it with their eyes. There are so many ways, and especially with technology, play with technology, that vibration is there to help. Pictures, they're showing up, our out-of-body pals are showing up so often in pictures, in digital photography, that people have a word for it. We call it orbs. After my mom passed, we all lined up. There was a first holiday. There was a picture, and right at the end was a giant orb. My mother's right there, letting us know that she is with us, letting us know that she is there. I want to make sure I don't want to keep going. Are there questions? Is there anything I can?
There are so many questions you can't even imagine, but mostly everyone is talking about the fact that what you're saying is helping so much. It's really wonderful when you talk about these kids who have transitioned, who might have transitioned without actually meaning to transition. I think that there's an enormous group of parents on here tonight who have had that happen. And it's important for all of us to know that they are happy, healthy, and home. And that, yes, maybe if someone meant to transition and was angry and upset and had some kind of psychological issues that needed to be taken care of, that they go into spiritual healing, but it's because they want to do so. It's not because anyone puts them there. And
Right.
they can stay as long as they want to. And I guess that the important thing that you have been saying that everyone is picking up on is that we need to be talking to them all the time, because they hear every single thing that we're saying and they love it. And they love it when we smile, as you say. They love being able to see that we're happy. And I know there are just so many people. I have a lot of people saying they want to read your book because it's. I wanted to ask you before we run out of time, do you have a waiting list that's very long? Because a lot of parents are saying that they would be interested in booking a reading, but I don't know how far out you're scheduling right now.
I'll tell you the truth. I don't schedule that far out. And I'll tell you why. I keep a list of everyone, and I look at when I get a tap on the shoulder, I go down the list of names, I get a tap on the shoulder, I'm working for them. And I go in that order. I've had many people call me and say, hey, you called my friend first and she called 3 months after me. It doesn't mean that your kid doesn't want to talk to you. It just means that that's what I'm getting that day. So I'll usually call people. I might book like a week or two in advance, but that's all. I really just stay open to be available. But I promise I'll get back, even if it takes a while. The other thing is I'd be happy to, I'm just so grateful to share. And I think this group is, you guys already know, you're the pioneers that are going out and helping the other people who don't know yet. If there's any way I can help, if you'd like to do, more Zooms where I talk about one particular thing or, whatever the issue is, I'm happy to do anything I can do to help.
We need to have you back, Marilyn. And I feel so grateful to Iris. I feel so grateful to Paula, who's had a reading through you. And I want everyone on here to read your book, because it is everything that you say in your book is exactly the way that we feel. And I think that it will be very, very helpful for people to read it. The next time that we meet, I think it would be everyone's saying, yes, please come back and speak to us. So I think that it would be really great if it would be possible for people to get the book, read it, understand exactly what Marilyn is saying. This individual, Alan, just an amazing story. As a matter of fact, again, I was just wanting to say we've had William Peters come and speak about shared death experiences twice and about his experiences with Dr. Raymond Moody. But he's very interested in this story with Alan, with his mother, experiencing this passing with Alan that was just beautiful, and she realized that it was a absolutely beautiful place. And so people are asking where to buy the book. Well, I have it on our preferred, our list of preferred reading. So on the provider page on the website under books on helpingparentsheal.org, it just goes to the Amazon location, but I'm sure that you can probably find the book also on Marilyn's website. And I will be posting her website with the information about the meeting. And I'm sorry, because normally we have a little bit more time to take questions, but tonight it's just been so wonderful to hear you and to hear all of the kids who are speaking to you and telling us information. And I love the information that you gave us about the pandemic. The important thing for everybody here to remember is that the veil is thinner right now, and they are there to help. So please ask your kids for help. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but two kids just said that I have to add something, that they hear us, but your parents, and they're the kids, they're not watching all the time. And two kids just went, ooh, gross. So they have as much interest in inappropriate stuff as we have with them. And, if they're older, they're not, don't worry about that. So
it's like that book, do dead people watch us shower? I think that's the
that would depend on the circumstance, but I don't think the kids.
No, of course not. I can't remember who it was. I think it might be Teresa Caputo or someone wrote a book like that. I always thought it was funny. They could care less about
no, that's not, they're not interested in that.
They're not interested. And anyway, I don't call them dead. We speak of our kids in the present as well, because they are still right here. They're all still right here with us, and they are more alive than we are. And again, they're having a blast because they're all together. They're all teaching each other. And I've heard so many parents who are also psychic mediums who are in our meetings, who see them high-fiving each other every time they get a parent to smile, which I think is fabulous. And so they do work together. I am just so grateful for you being here, and grateful to Iris, grateful to Paula for being on here as well. I didn't get to bring her on to speak, but we will definitely have you back if you're willing to come. So maybe in a month or so, it would be wonderful. And before we do go, we're going to have everyone say thank you and goodbye. So Irene, I believe, has already unmuted.
Yes, everyone can unmute themselves. Thank you. It was a wonderful evening. Oh my
Yes,
God.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Marilyn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Love you.
We'll see you. We'll see you again. And come back for Daniel
Thanks,
John
Marilyn.
tomorrow, everyone.
Oh yeah. Another meeting. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.